The alien hospital was quiet that evening, but not peaceful. The halls were filled with whispers. The lights glowed pale blue, and the smell of strange medicines hung in the air. Nurses moved quickly from room to room, their voices low, their eyes full of worry. Something unusual had arrived, something none of them had been trained for. At the far end of the ward, soldiers pushed in a stretcher. On it lay a man, but not an alien. He was human. Blood stained his chest. His arm was broken, and deep cuts ran across his face. The nurses froze where they stood there, hearts thudding. Everyone knew humans were dangerous, unpredictable, hard to treat. Their bodies resisted alien medicine. Their minds carried strange strength. Many feared them. Few ever saw one up close. The young nurse Liara stood still as the stretcher stopped before her. Her hands trembled, though she tried to hide it. She was new, only 2 years out of training. Her books had taught her about wounds, organs, healing beams, and herbal gels, but never about humans. The head medic looked at her sharply and said, "You take this one, Liara. No one else will." Her heart skipped a beat. She wanted to refuse, but her voice would not come. She stepped closer to the human. His skin looked pale compared to her glowing violet complexion. His chest rose and fell slowly, stubbornly, like a fire refusing to die. The alien guards muttered, "Why save him? He is a killer. Let him die." Liara ignored them. Though her throat felt tight, she leaned over the human, studying his face. His eyes were closed, his lips cracked from thirst. She whispered to herself, "What am I supposed to do with you?" Her hands reached for the healing device, but she hesitated. Every medicine she knew might fail or worse, kill him. Her mind raced, her body shook. The room was silent, all eyes on her. She pressed the lightly against his chest, sending soft pulses of light through his body. The monitor beeped weakly, showing small signs of life. She sighed with relief, just a little, but then the human's eyes opened. The nurse gasped and stepped back. His eyes were strange, deep, sharp, filled with pain, but also something else, something that made her knees weak. Soldiers reached for their weapons, thinking he would attack, but the human did not move. Instead, he looked directly at her and whispered in a voice broken but clear, "Don't let me die." The words echoed in the room like thunder, simple, desperate, yet filled with a force none could explain. The alien guards froze. The other nurses gasped. Liara's chest tightened, her mind spinning. She had expected screams, anger, violence, but what she heard was something different, a plea, a human's plea. No one had trained her for this. Her hands clenched against her gown. She wanted to run, but her legs stayed rooted. The human's eyes stayed on her, burning with fragile hope. For a moment, the world around her faded. It was just her and the patient, his life resting in her hands. Her heart pounded. She whispered back, I won't." The words left her lips before she could stop them. The staff looked at her in shock. Was she promising to save a human, a creature they all feared? The head medic barked, "Be careful, Liara. He is not like us. He is dangerous." But she barely heard him. The human closed his eyes again, as if her words were enough to give him strength to keep breathing. And in that quiet, trembling room, Liara realized something that made her chest grow heavy. This was no ordinary patient. This was the beginning of something far larger than her. Something that could shake not just the hospital, but the world outside. The whispers grew, the guards argued, the other nurses avoided the bed, but Liara stayed, her hand steady now, her gaze locked on the strange human before her. Fear battled with courage inside her heart. She had never been trained for this, but she knew one thing clearly. She could not walk away, not now, not after what he said. The strange patient was hers to protect, and his response had shaken the room more than any weapon could. The hospital lights dimmed to night mode, soft shadows spreading across the room. Most of the staff had left for the evening, leaving only a few guards and a handful of tired nurses. Liara stayed by the human's side, unable to pull herself away. Her training whispered in her mind, do not stay too long with dangerous patients, but her heart refused to listen. The human lay still, his breath heavy, his body weak but stubborn. The alien machines hummed softly, their readings confused, their numbers jumping wildly. No one had ever connected these monitors to a human before. The data meant little. Yet Liara kept watching, hoping to understand. She prepared another dose of the healing beam, her hands trembling as she lifted the device. The glowing blue light touched his skin, spreading warmth across his chest. At first the machine showed improvement, then suddenly the human's body jolted violently. His back arched, his jaw clenched, his hands shot up with shocking speed. Before she could react, his fingers wrapped tightly around her wrist. Liara gasped, nearly dropping the device. The guards rushed forward, weapons half drawn. Step back, one barked, he'll kill you. But she froze, staring into the human's eyes. They were open now, sharp and burning, but not with rage. His grip was strong, too strong for someone so injured. Her heart thundered in her chest. The human's lips moved, his voice rough and broken. Stop that thing, it burns, he whispered. Liara's eyes widened. She quickly shut off the healing beam. The glow faded and his grip loosened. But he did not let go completely. Instead, his hand lingered on hers, his fingers trembling, yet warm. The nurse felt her face flush, her pulse racing faster than she could control. No alien patient had ever touched her like this in her training. Contact was discouraged, forbidden even, but this touch was different, strange, human. It was not violent, it was desperate, it was real. Her hand shook inside his, but she did not pull away. She whispered softly, "You can feel this." He nodded faintly, his eyes closing as if the effort of speaking had drained him. The guards muttered angrily, "Humans are not meant to survive our treatments." One hissed, "Let him go, nurse, before he tricks you," said another. But Liara ignored them, her gaze fixed on the human's fragile strength. She gently placed her other hand on his chest, feeling the faint rhythm of his heart. It beat slower than hers, heavier, like a drum fighting not to stop. A surge of fear and curiosity ran through her. She was no longer looking at him as just a patient. He was something more, something her books had never prepared her for. Her voice was soft, trembling, but honest. "I don't know how to heal you," she confessed. The human opened his eyes again, pain shadowing them. "Then don't let me go," he whispered. His words sank deep into her chest, heavier than any command from her superiors. She swallowed hard, unable to speak, her throat too tight. Hours Past, the room silent except for the soft beeping of machines and the humans. Strained breathing, Liara stayed by his side, holding his hand in both of hers, ignoring the glares from other staff. For the first time in her short career, she was acting not as a nurse but as something else entirely, not out of duty but out of instinct. Every moment she stayed, she knew she was stepping further outside the rules, but she could not bring herself to stop. In the quiet, she studied him closely. His wounds were terrible, yet his body clung to life with stubborn fire. His hand, though trembling, refused to release hers fully. She noticed small scars on his fingers, marks of old battles, old pain. This man had lived through horrors long before she ever touched him, and now somehow he had trusted her enough to hold on. The other nurses whispered among themselves, calling her reckless, foolish, even dangerous, but when she looked at his face, pale and strained, yet calm in her presence, she knew they were wrong. This was not just survival. This was something deeper. The human strength came not from his body, but from his will, and now somehow that was connected to her. She stayed until dawn, her eyelids heavy, her body aching from sitting too long. When the first light of the alien sun poured into the ward, she gently tried to pull her hand away, but his fingers twitched, gripping tighter even in his sleep. She froze, her heart aching. Strangely, she whispered, "I will stay." Then, and settled back into her chair. No one had trained her for this. No manual spoke of what to do when a patient's hand refused to let go. No lessons warned how a single touch could feel so heavy, so alive. Leah realized with a shiver that this forbidden touch was changing everything. Not just for her, but perhaps for all who feared what a human truly was. The ward was silent except for the hum of machines. Most of the patients were asleep. The lights dimmed, casting long shadows across the floor. Liara sat by the human's bed, her eyes heavy from exhaustion, but her heart refused to let her leave. She watched the slow rise and fall of his chest, each breath sounding like a struggle against death itself. Her fingers still tingled from the memory of his grip. That forbidden touch had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. She tried to convince herself it was only duty keeping her here, but deep inside she knew it was something else. Something that frightened her even more than the human himself. As the night deepened, she heard him stir, his lips moved, but not with words meant for her. They were whispers, broken fragments of sentences that made her lean closer. She caught pieces. "Don't leave them. Fire everywhere. Hold the line." Her throat tightened, her chest heavy. He was dreaming. Trapped inside his pain, Liara hesitated, then placed her hand gently on his arm. "SHH," she whispered softly. "You are safe here." But the human's whispers grew louder, more desperate. "No, not safe there. Still out there." His voice cracked, his body trembled as if reliving a nightmare. She could not see. She leaned closer, her violet eyes full of worry. He spoke of comrades left behind, voices screaming, fire consuming everything. She realized these were not just dreams. These were memories. Memories of war, of battles no nurse had ever faced. Liara felt the sting of tears. This man carried more than wounds on his body. He carried the weight of loss, heavier than any injury she could heal. For a long moment she sat frozen, unsure what to do. Her training had not prepared her for pain that lived in the soul. Yet her heart urged her to act. She gently brushed her fingers across his hand, whispering, "You're not there anymore. You're here with me, the humans." Breathing slowed. His body eased slightly, his whispers faded into silence as if her voice had pulled him out of the fire. She stared at him, stunned by what just happened. A nurse's word should not matter to a warrior like him. And yet in that fragile moment her voice had reached him where medicine could not. The thought both frightened and warmed. Sorry. What was she becoming, staying this close, breaking all the rules? But when she saw the lines of pain ease from his face, she knew she could not regret it. Minutes passed, then hours. The human stirred again, opening his eyes weakly. His gaze met hers, and for the first time he seemed aware. "You stayed," he whispered, his voice rough. Liara swallowed hard, unable to speak, only nodding. He closed his eyes again, but his lips curved faintly, almost like a smile. It was small, fleeting, but enough to send a strange warmth through her chest. The other nurses avoided his room, fearful. The guard stood far, muttering that she was foolish to waste her time, but Liara no longer heard them. Her world had narrowed to the human before her. She wanted to know who he was, what he had seen, why his words carried such weight. She wanted to understand the pain that haunted him even in sleep. As dawn approached, she sat by the window, the faint glow of the alien sun lighting the ward. She thought of his whispers, of the broken fragments of his past. Question grew in her mind, heavy and dangerous. If humans carried so much pain inside them, then how did they still rise, still fight, still cling to life? She looked back at him, at the scars across his face, at the steady beat of his chest. Her voice trembled as she whispered to herself, "What are you really?" When the head medic returned in the morning, he frowned at the sight of her still there. "You're too close, Liara. Remember the rules," he warned. But she barely listened, her heart already tied to the strange patient who whispered of battles and grief. She had crossed a line and she knew it. Yet no part of her wanted to step back. That night had changed everything. She was no longer just a nurse with a patient. She was a listener to a voice filled with sorrow, a keeper of whispers never meant for alien ears. And as she watched him rest, she realized something dangerous. His pain was becoming her burden, too. And no one had trained her for that. The next day came heavy with tension. The ward was filled with low voices, hurried footsteps, and the quiet hum of machines that refused to settle. Liara stood by the human's bed, her hands folded tightly, her mind running faster than her breath. She had stayed through another night, listening to his whispers, watching his body fight for life, but now his condition was slipping again. The healing beam had failed, the herbal gels had no effect, the medicines only made his body shake harder, his skin grew colder, his breathing rougher. The machine screamed in sharp tones, warning of a heart that would not hold. The senior medic scowled and shook his head. "Enough, Nurse Liara," he said firmly. "We have done all we can. His kind cannot survive here. Let him go." Her chest tightened, her throat burned. "Let him go." The words cut like knives. She looked at the human, pale, broken, his lips slightly parted, fighting for air. She remembered his whispers, his plea, his touch. He had begged her not to let him die. And now they wanted her to stand back and watch, her hands clenched until her nails dug into her palms. Every lesson she had been taught told her to obey, to follow orders, but her heart screamed. Against it, she stepped forward, shaking her head. "No," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "Not yet." The room froze. The guards turned, the other nurses gasped. The senior medic narrowed his eyes. "You dare disobey, nurse?" he hissed. Liara's knees trembled, but she did not move. Her eyes locked on the human, on the faint rise of his chest. "He is still alive," she whispered, "and while he breathes, I will not stop." She turned quickly, pulling a small case from the lower shelves. Inside was a device she had only read about, a forbidden healing method. Banned for its risks, it could either save a life or end it instantly. She had never been trained to use it. No nurse had. Her hands shook as she powered it on. "Its glow sharp and dangerous, Liara." "Stop this madness," the medic barked. But she blocked out his voice, her world narrowing to the patient before her. The human's chest heaved weakly, his skin pale, his heartbeat faint but stubborn. She pressed the device against him, whispering, "Hold on." The room filled with a pulse of golden light. The machine screamed louder, then fell silent, their readings blank. For one terrifying moment, Liara thought she had killed him. Her heart stopped, her breath caught in her chest. The guard shouted. The medic reached to yank the device away, but then the human's body jolted, his eyes snapping open. He gasped, dragging air into his lungs. With a sound so raw it echoed through the ward, Liara stumbled back, her chest heaving with relief. The machines lit up again, this time steady, stronger. His heartbeat pounded against the monitor, loud and alive. The guards froze, their weapons half raised, unsure what to do. The medic stared in disbelief, his lips parting with shock. The human's gaze swept the room, then landed on Liara. He was weak, barely able to move, but his eyes burned with something fierce. For a long second, the ward was silent, every being frozen in place. Then the human spoke, his voice low but steady. "You saved me." The words broke the silence like glass shattering on stone. The guards lowered their weapons slowly. The nurses whispered in fear. Even the medic, proud and cold, could not hide the tremble in his hands. No alien had ever heard a human speak those words before. Not with such weight. Liara's chest ached, her throat tightening. She had not just saved him. She had crossed a line that could not be undone. The senior medic turned sharply, his voice like steel. "This is dangerous, reckless. You may have doomed us all." But Liara ignored him, her eyes locked on the human's faint smile. His gratitude was more powerful than the glow of the machines. It filled the room, breaking fear apart like sunlight through storm clouds. Liara realized something then, something that shook her to her core. This was not about medicine, not about rules. This was about life, about trust, about the bond between healer and patient. And in that moment, she understood why her heart had refused to let go. The human closed his eyes, again resting, but his chest rose, stronger now, his breath steadier. Liara stayed by his side, refusing to move even as whispers spread through the ward. Her colleagues looked at her with fear, with anger, with disbelief. But none of that mattered anymore. She had made her choice, and it was written in the life she had. Saved. The forbidden device hummed quietly. Her hands. She knew she would face punishment, perhaps exile for what she had done. But as she looked at the human's face, calm for the first time since he arrived, she felt no regret, for she had chosen to believe in him, and in return, he had given her something greater than any medicine could. Hope. That night, when the ward finally grew quiet, Liara sat by his bed, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, but her spirit unshaken. No one had trained her for this moment, for this breaking point, yet she had crossed it, and she knew there was no turning back. The ward buzzed with restless energy. The next morning, word had already spread beyond the hospital walls. The human lives, they whispered. He survived what should have killed him. Guards doubled at the doors. Nurses avoided the room. Even the senior medic refused to step closer. Everyone feared what the human's awakening might mean. Liara sat at his side, her body heavy with sleepless nights, but her heart steady. She had been the one to break the rules, to risk the forbidden device, and now she waited for the result. The human's eyes slowly opened, clearer than before. He blinked against the soft light, his chest rising stronger, his breathing steady. For a moment, silence held the room, as if the universe itself was waiting. The guards tensed, weapons ready. Nurses peeked nervously from behind the curtains. Even Liara's hands trembled, unsure what would come. But then, the human pushed himself weakly to sit, his muscles straining against the bandages. Everyone gasped. He should not have had that strength, not after so much blood loss, not after so much pain. One guard barked, "Stay down, human." His voice sharp, but the man ignored him, his gaze sweeping the room until it stopped on Liara. Her violet eyes widened as his lips parted. No one knew if he would curse or rage or spit venom like the stories claimed. Instead, his voice, low and rough but steady, spoke words that froze the air. "Thank you," he said, his eyes locked on the alien nurse. The room fell into silence, so deep it felt like the walls themselves leaned in to hear. Not one alien moved, not one breath broke the moment, for no human had ever spoken to them like this, with gratitude, with warmth. His voice carried no threat, no hatred, only truth. Liara's chest tightened, her throat dry, her hands shook as she whispered, You thank me." The human nodded faintly, his eyes soft. "Despite the scars, you saved me when no one else would. You stayed," he said slowly, each word heavy with meaning. The guards shifted uneasily, their grips tightening on their weapons. This was not the response they expected, not the one their leaders had prepared them for. The senior medic stormed into the ward, his voice cutting like a blade. "Enough of this," he barked. "Humans do not thank, they destroy. This is a trick." But the human only turned his head, his gaze steady and unshaken. "If I wanted to destroy, you would not be standing here," he said calmly. His words carried weight, undeniable, strength deeper than the wounds in his body. The nurses murmured nervously, some turning away, others whispering. But Liara could not look anywhere else, her eyes fixed on him. His gratitude filled her with a warmth she did not understand. It was simple, yet it shattered every fear, every warning, every lesson drilled into her since childhood. Humans were meant to be monsters, but here he was, broken, weak, yet thanking her as if she were the one holding his life. Together, the senior medic snapped, "Do not listen, nurse. He will poison your mind." But Liara shook her head, her voice firmer than ever. "No," she said. "These are not the words of a monster. They are the words of someone alive." Her defiance stunned the room. The guards looked at each other uncertainly, and the human gave the faintest of smiles, weary but real. Then, with a strength that should have been impossible, he lifted his hand. It trembled, shaking from weakness, but he stretched it toward her, palm open. The guards shouted warnings. The nurses gasped, but Liara stepped closer. She placed her hand in his, her pulse racing, her breath short. His grip was warm, gentle this time, no desperation, only gratitude. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion, for everyone in that room witnessed the impossible. A human and an alien nurse, hands joined, not in violence, not in fear, but in trust. And in that fragile moment, the stories of humans as beasts began to crack. The senior medic hissed, "This will not last. Do not fool yourself." But his voice sounded hollow, weak, against what they had just seen. Liara looked at the human, her voice soft but clear. "I don't care how long it lasts. This moment is real." The human's eyes softened further, his lips forming quiet words. "Sometimes a moment is enough to change everything." The guards, the nurses, even the medic, fell into uneasy silence. No one dared to speak against the weight of those words. The human leaned back against the bed, his strength fading but his eyes alive. Liara stayed by his side, their hands still joined. She knew punishment awaited her for breaking rules, but in her heart she also knew she had witnessed something greater than fear. That day the ward was not just a place of healing. It became the place where the first crack appeared in the wall of hatred between human and alien. And it began with two words no one expected to hear. "Thank you." The sun barely rose that day. Thick gray clouds covered the sky above the alien city, and a strain silence hung in the air. Inside the hospital, the halls buzzed with nervous whispers, not from patients but from the staff. Rumors had spread far beyond the medical ward. "The human is awake," they said. He thanked her. He held her hand. He didn't kill anyone. Outside the hospital gates, armored transports had arrived. Officials in long robes and dark coats stood in silence, watching the entrance with cold eyes. They were not there to offer help. They were there because the idea of a human showing kindness was dangerous. Liara sat quietly beside the human's bed, her shoulders tense, her mind racing. She hadn't slept, not since the moment he whispered, "Thank you." She could feel the shift in the air, the way the staff looked at her now, like she had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. But she didn't regret it. Not when she looked at him, alive, breathing healing. Not when she remembered the warmth of his hand in hers. The door slid open and two guards entered, their expressions unreadable. Behind them walked an officer in a black uniform, her eyes sharp and unforgiving. "You are Liara," the woman said coldly. Liara nodded slowly, standing. "You are to step away from the human," the officer ordered. "Why?" Liara asked, her voice calm but firm. "He is no longer your patient." Human stirred, lifting his head weakly. "Wait," he said, his voice rough. "She stays." The officer turned sharply toward him, her face twitching with surprise. "You do not give orders here, human," she snapped. But the human didn't flinch. He looked straight at her, then back at Liara. "If she leaves, I leave too," he said. The guards exchanged nervous glances. The officer's lips tightened. "You are in no condition to make threats." "It's not a threat," the human said. "It's a choice." The room fell silent again. Liara's heart pounded in her chest. She had never imagined a human would speak for her, stand for her, not like this. The officer stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Do you know what you're doing, nurse? This alliance, it's unnatural." Liara lifted her chin. "What I did was save a life," she said. "Nothing about that is unnatural." The officer stared at her, then sighed sharply. "You'll be brought before the council," she said. Liara nodded without fear. "So be it." As the officers turned to leave, one of the guards leaned in and whispered outside, "There are hundreds watching, news crews, protesters, soldiers." Liara's eyes widened. "They're here for him," the guard added, "and for you." She stepped to the window, pulling back the curtain down below. A sea of faces filled the street, signs held high, lights blinking, cameras floating through the air. Some screamed in anger, others shouted her name in disbelief. Some held signs that read, "Traitor nurse," but others read, "Compassion wins," and hope. The storm outside wasn't just about politics or rules. It was about fear and the crack she and the human had made in it. A crack that let something else in. Something dangerous to those who wanted the old order to remain. The human coughed softly behind her. She rushed to his side, placing a wet cloth on his forehead. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He opened one eye and looked at her. "For what?" "For what they'll do to you because of me." He smiled faintly. "I've faced worse," he said. "But I never had someone stand beside me like you." His hand brushed against hers again. Not in desperation, but as if to comfort her. Now she let him hold it. She didn't care who was watching anymore. That evening, a council transport arrived to take her away. She kissed his hand gently before standing. "I'll be back," she said firmly. The human nodded. "I'll wait." As the doors closed behind her, the wind outside howled. Dust swirled in the streets, banners flapped wildly. The storm was no longer just in the skies, it was in the hearts of the people. Some afraid, some curious, some ready for change. And in the center of it all was a human patient who refused to let go, and an alien nurse who refused to walk away. The council chamber was cold and silent, high above the city, surrounded by steel walls and glowing screens. A group of elders sat in silence. Liara stood alone in the center of the circular room. No lawyer, no family, no support. Just a nurse with trembling hands and a brave heart. "You broke the rules," one of the elders said. "You used forbidden equipment," another added. "You let yourself be touched by a human," a third whispered. Like it was poison. Liara stood straight, her voice calm. "Yes," she said, "I broke the rules to save a life." They looked at her with tired eyes, eyes that had seen wars, lies, and fear, but not courage like this. One elder leaned forward. "And what if that human rises against us? What if your act of compassion becomes our greatest mistake?" Liara didn't flinch. "Then I will face it," she said, "Bung, but I will not regret saving him." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the chamber doors opened with a hiss. Gasps echoed around the room. The human entered slowly, still weak. His arm in a sling, but walking on his own. Soldiers had tried to stop him at the gates, but the crowds outside had parted, some threw stones, others dropped their weapons in silence. The city had never seen a human walk freely since the war. He stepped beside Lyra, breathing heavy, but his eyes strong. "If she is punished," he said, "then punish me too." The elders stiffened. "You are not one of us," one barked. "No," the human agreed. "But I'm alive because of her," a murmur rippled through the council chamber. None of them had ever seen a human defend an alien. The oldest among them leaned forward. Slowly, "What are you really?" he asked. "A soldier, a spy, a trick," the human shook his head. "I was a weapon once," he said, "but she turned me into a man again." Outside the chamber, thousands gathered. Screens played the hearing live, broadcasting the scene to every district. People who had never met a human leaned closer to their display. Some cried, some shouted, some sat in silence, watching history unfold inside. Lyra's voice softened. "I didn't save him because he was human," she said. "I saved him because he was in pain." The oldest elder looked at them both, then nodded slowly. "Then let your pain change others," he said. "Let the galaxy see what mercy looks like." No punishment was given. No medal either, just silence and the slow turning of an old machine called fear. The guards lowered their weapons. The nurses who once whispered turned away with tears. Something had shifted quietly but deeply. Lyra walked with the human down the steps of the council tower. Outside, the wind had died, the dust had settled. A small child stood by the edge of the crowd, holding a sign drawn by hand. It read, "He's not the monster I was told about." The human smiled weakly. His wound still ached, but his heart felt lighter than ever before. Lyra stood beside him, no longer just a nurse. Now she was something else, proof that even across stars and scars, kindness could still win. He turned to her, voice soft. "You could have walked away." "I almost did," she replied. "But you asked me not to." He nodded, then whispered, "Thank you." Again, that moment didn't make the war vanish. It didn't heal every wound or silence every hate-filled voice. But it did something greater. It made the galaxy pause. Leaders argued, soldiers questioned, families listened, and somewhere, in a place where laws had always been cold, one nurse and one soldier reminded them that the heart has rules of its own. As the human and the alien walked down the crowded street, side by side, people moved aside, not in fear but in awe. The nurse had once been afraid to touch him. Now their steps echoed like thunder, shaking something greater than walls. They were shaking minds, shaking lies, shaking worlds.